All right, now we're going to cover dividing polynomials but using synthetic division. You've just watched a video, or in the previous section just watched a video on dividing polynomials using long division. Now we're going to kind of work with a quicker way called synthetic division. Now it can be quicker, it depends on what you're given, but I'm going to work the same problems we just worked on long division, but I'm going to use synthetic division instead. So first thing we do is to set up synthetic division is I want to look at the degree of my leading term. In this case it is 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my little house here. We'll come back to that here in just a minute. Actually, I'm going to do this first, okay? So we have x to the fourth, and what we're going to do is we're going to go in descending order. So notice how this starts out: x to the fourth, x to the fourth, x to the third, x squared, x to the first, and x to the 0. X to the 0 just means the term with no x. Okay. The reason why I do this is this helps me make sure that I cover all my bases and all my terms, because in some cases you'll find that the x squared is missing, which happens in problem number 3. Next thing we do is we're going to fill in what is the coefficient in front of each one of these terms. So the coefficient, or the leading coefficient, of x to the fourth is 8. So we're going to put an 8 underneath here, and x to the third, there's a 79 in front here. In front of the x squared there's a negative 17. Again, I'm taking the negative sign out of there, or using it, putting it into the problem. Next thing is negative 80, the x to the first, and then negative 92 is the term with no x, okay, or x to the 0 power. Alright, so now I've got that set up. Again, these come from the coefficients in front of each one of these terms. Okay, my next thing is I'm going to do is I'm going to put a number here. Now this number is, if we take our x plus 10, I'm going to set that equal to 0. Okay, that's kind of like the 0 of this particular equation, and so I'm going to solve for x, and I get x equals negative 10. So I'm actually going to plug negative 10 into this thing. This is also kind of, if you remember, this is called the remainder theorem as well. Synthetic division, it's a pretty crazy thing that we can use to help us solve problems. And so the next thing we do is we draw our line here, and we're going to move this guy down right away. So the first guy comes down, 8 times negative 10. So I take 8 times negative 10, which would equal negative 80. All right. So the next thing I do is I add down. So plus, so 79 minus or plus negative 80 would be negative 1. And I do the same process again. Negative 1 times negative 10 would give me 10. And I put that answer right here. I add these together and I get negative 7. And again, I go through the process again. Let me eliminate some of these lines so that it doesn't get too confusing here. Let's see here. All right. So again, I go through the process of negative 17 plus 10, which is negative 7. Negative 7 times negative 10 is 70. I add these together and I get negative 10. Negative 10 times 10 is 100, and my remainder is 8. All right. Once I run out of room, my last thing on this sequence is the remainder, which in this case is 8. So my answer is 8x. These are my coefficients of my answer now. I'm one less degree than what I started with, so I'm 8x to the third minus x squared minus 7x minus 10 plus 8 over what I originally divided by, which is x plus 10, which is x plus 10. Now, if you go back to the other video, that's the same answer we got earlier. And so let me review that again. We take the 8 and put it 1 degree less than what we started with, so 8x to the third, minus 1x squared, or I just put it as minus x squared, minus 7x minus 10 plus 8 over x plus 10. All right. So let me give an example where maybe it doesn't work out as nicely because maybe all the terms aren't covered. Maybe you can give it a shot yourself here. But I'm going to work it rather quickly here. So I start out with the leading term, or the degree of this polynomial, is n to the fourth. So I'm going to start out by drawing n to the fourth, drawing my all the way down to n equals 0. I do this every time. I start with what my degree is, which in this case is n to the fourth, and that kind of gives me placeholders for all the numbers that I need to use, especially on this problem, which you'll find here in just a second. So in front of n to the fourth, I have 1. In front of n to the third, I have negative 3. In front of n squared, there is no n squared, so I need to put a 0 in here. With synthetic division, we really need to be cautious of this because we'll lose a key term in this particular problem if we don't put a 0 here. In long division, we may not have to worry about that, but in this case, we're going to put a 0 in for n squared. Okay. Next thing we have here in front of n is let's see, negative 6, and n to the 0 is let's see, 24. All right, so I'm going to go rather quick through this. The number I'm going to put in there is 3. So I bring down the 1, put 3 here. 0, 0 times 3 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. I get negative 6. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18, and so my answer is 6. So my end answer here is 1 less degree than what I started with, n to the third. I can put a 1 in front. I don't have n squared. I don't have n. I just have a negative 6. And then I have plus 6 over what I divided by, which is n minus 3. Now, on this final one, I'm going to kind of let you try it out here. We have to think from the sense of what am I going to put inside the box here. Let's see, x to the fourth, x3, x squared, x1, x to 0. I have 3, negative 1, no x squared, 18, and negative 16. Now you have to figure out what I'm going to put in this little spot right here. In this case, I have to go over here. 3x minus 1 equals 0, plus 1 plus 1. 3x equals 1, divided by 3, divided by 3. So the number I'm going to put in my house here is 1/3. Now luckily the numbers that I use are pretty nice, and so what I want you to do is give this a shot. I'll give you started here. 3 times 1/3 is 1, so this becomes 0. 0 times that is 0. I'll work it rather quickly. I guess I can finish it up here. 18, 1/3 of 18 is 6, so my remainder is negative 10. And so my answer is 3x to the third plus 18 minus 10 over 3x minus 1. Now, I worked these rather quickly because I'm strapped on time, so hopefully I worked them correctly. If you correct me, if I did do something wrong, you correct me, then I will give you some extra credit. So go through these problems, make sure that you're grasping it. The best way to understand synthetic division is practice, practice, practice. All right? Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you shortly. Bye-bye.